The hospital was too quiet at night. Dr. Elena Carter had walked these halls for nearly a decade. But lately, something about St. Dismas Medical Center unsettled her. The fluorescent lights hummed overhead, the sterile smell of antiseptic clung to her skin, and the whispers of patients, whispers that didn't make sense, followed her long after she left their rooms. She told herself it was exhaustion. Long hours. Too many cases. But then came the first irregularity. A patient admitted for a routine appendectomy was suddenly transferred to the restricted wing. Ward C. Officially, Ward C didn't exist. At least not on paper. No patient files. No digital records. No visitor access. Yet she had watched orderlies wheel him in, for dripping, monitors trailing. And he never came back. The whispers spread among the staff. A nurse muttered about special research cases. A janitor swore he heard screams muffled by the thick doors at the far end of the hall. Elena dismissed them at first. Hospitals are full of paranoia. But when her closest friend, Nurse Marissa, pulled her aside, face pale with terror, she knew it was more than rumors. They're experimenting on patients, Elena, Marissa whispered, hands trembling. I've seen it. People go in, and they don't come out the same. Elena felt a chill crawl down her spine. What do you mean? Marissa's eyes darted to the security camera above them. Not here. Just watch your back. They're watching everything. That night, Elena couldn't sleep. She replayed Marissa's words. The empty beds. The vanishing patients. She told herself it had to be a misunderstanding. But deep down, she knew something was wrong. The next day, she made a decision that would change her life. Instead of clocking out after her shift, she slipped her badge into her pocket and walked toward Ward C. The corridor was deserted. Security doors loomed ahead, red lights blinking above the lock. She hesitated. One wrong move could end her career. But the silence, the mystery, the sense of injustice pulled her forward. She scanned her badge. To her surprise, the lock clicked open. Inside, the air was colder, the lights dimmer, the walls lined with soundproofing panels. This wasn't a ward. It was a lab. Rows of beds stretched before her, patients strapped down, IVs feeding into their arms. Some writhed, muttering incoherently. Others lay still, eyes open but unfocused, as if staring through her. Machines beeped rhythmically, recording vitals she couldn't understand. A clipboard caught her eye. She picked it up, scanning the notes. Words leapt out at her. Neurological induction. Behavioral override. Experimental compound dosage. Her stomach lurched. A voice cut through the silence. Dr. Carter. She spun around. A tall man in a lab coat stood in the doorway, flanked by 2 security guards. His smile was calm, controlled. Too controlled. You've seen too much. Elena's heart raced. She wanted to run, to scream, but her legs wouldn't move. The guard stepped closer, and she realized in that instant. The whispers were true. The hospital she trusted was hiding something monstrous. And now she was caught in its grip. Dr. Elena Carter barely slept after that night. The image of the patients in Ward C, strapped down, their vacant eyes staring through her, haunted her every thought. But worse was the man in the lab coat, the one who caught her. He hadn't threatened her directly. He hadn't needed to. His smile said everything. We own this place. And now we own you. She tried to bury herself in her daily duties. Broken bones, chest pains, sick children, all the things she had once believed medicine was about. But every patient she saw reminded her of those nameless figures trapped in Ward C. It was during her rounds on the 5th floor that she met him. Room 512. A middle-aged man, pale, his arms covered in track marks that didn't match the chart. He looked at her with eyes that flickered between lucidity and delirium. His file said post-surgical recovery. But his body told another story. You don't belong here, he rasped the moment they were alone. Elena froze. Excuse me? You, the one who looked, the one who saw them. Ward C. His voice cracked. He grabbed her wrist with surprising strength. They think I don't remember, but I do. Her pulse spiked. She leaned in, whispering, "Who are you?" "My name doesn't matter. They erased it. In there." He pointed shakily at his temple. "They tried to change me, make me forget. But they made a mistake. I still remember pieces. Wires. Needles. Voices in my head that weren't mine." Elena felt her stomach twist. "Experiments? What kind?" He coughed violently, blood speckling his gown. His voice dropped to a ragged whisper. "Behavior control. They want soldiers who obey without question. They want to turn people into machines." His grip tightened. "Don't trust anyone. They're watching." Before she could respond, the door opened. A nurse stepped in, not Marissa, but one of the new recruits she didn't recognize. Her smile was too polite, too practiced. "Doctor, visiting hours are over." The man on the bed released Elena's hand instantly, retreating into silence. His eyes, however, screamed with desperation. "Help me." That night, Elena confronted Marissa again. "You knew," Elena said, pacing the small break room. "You knew they were experimenting on patients. I spoke to one of them today. He remembers." Marissa's face drained of color. She glanced around before whispering, "You shouldn't have spoken to him. They'll know." "Who are they, Marissa? Who's behind this?" Marissa hesitated, then shook her head. "It's bigger than the hospital. The funding comes from outside. Government contracts, military research. This place is just the testing ground." Elena's chest tightened. "So we're torturing people in the name of defense?" Marissa's eyes filled with tears. "If you push too far, they'll silence you. They've done it before." Elena slammed her hand on the table. "I can't just stand by. People are suffering. They're destroying lives." Marissa leaned forward, voice shaking. "Then be smart. Don't fight them alone. Find proof. Something they can't bury. Otherwise, you'll end up just like them. Strapped to a bed in Ward C." Elena knew she was right. She needed evidence. But in a hospital where cameras lined every hallway and security guards knew her face, how could she uncover the truth without becoming the next test subject? That night, as thunder rolled outside and rain battered the hospital windows, Elena made her choice. She wasn't going to wait for more whispers. She would go back into Ward C. But this time, she'd find something she could take to the outside world. And if she failed, she might never leave the hospital alive. Elena Carter waited until the hospital had settled into its midnight rhythm, the lull between emergencies, when the halls were quiet except for the occasional shuffle of an orderly or the squeak of a janitor's cart. Her heart pounded as she slipped her badge into the security scanner leading down to the basement. Few doctors ever had reason to go there. The archives were supposed to be filled with decades of dusty records, storage boxes, old x-rays, files long forgotten. But Marissa had once whispered to her, "The real secrets aren't in the labs. They're in the basement. That's where they keep the paperwork nobody's supposed to see." The scanner beeped. To her surprise, the door clicked open. The basement was cold and damp, the hum of fluorescent lights overhead flickering like dying fireflies. She moved quickly between rows of metal cabinets, searching for anything marked with the telltale red stamp she had glimpsed on that clipboard in Ward C. Her fingers trailed over boxes labeled innocuously, surgical records, 2012 to 2015, pharmacy logs, billing statements, nothing unusual, until she found a cabinet at the far end, locked with a digital keypad. She crouched, pulling a stolen nurse's keycard from her pocket. It was a risk, borrowing it from Marissa. If anyone noticed, they'd both be finished. She swiped it. The lock flashed red. Access denied. Her pulse spiked. She tried again. Red. A sound echoed in the hallway. Footsteps. Heavy. Slow. Panic surged through her. She darted behind a stack of boxes, holding her breath. The footsteps drew closer. A shadow stretched across the wall. A man's voice muttered into a walkie-talkie. "Basement clear. Moving on." The shadow retreated. Elena exhaled shakily, her hands trembling. She turned back to the keypad, desperation flaring. And then she noticed it. Faint smudge marks on 4 of the buttons. Someone had been entering the code often enough to leave traces. She pressed them carefully, trying different combinations. On the fourth attempt, the lock beeped green. The cabinet clicked open. Inside were rows of thick manila folders, each marked Project Nightfall. Her stomach dropped. She pulled one free, flipping it open under the flickering light. What she read made her blood run cold. Patient acquisition, unclaimed bodies, homeless population, patients with no next of kin, procedure notes, induction serum administered, subject failed to comply, terminated, outcomes, success rate, 14%, increased aggression, decreased autonomy. Her hands shook. These weren't patients. They were victims, stolen lives used as test subjects for an experiment in control. The man upstairs had been right. Soldiers who obey without question. She turned the page and froze. Photographs. Her breath caught as she recognized some of the faces. Men and women who had been admitted for minor ailments. A boy no older than 12. They weren't just test subjects. They had been real people, alive and terrified, until the hospital turned them into something else. One file slipped from her hand. She reached down to grab it when a voice cut through the silence. Well, Dr. Carter. I should have known curiosity would get the better of you." She looked up. The tall man from Ward C stood at the end of the aisle, arms folded, eyes glinting with satisfaction. 2 security guards flanked him, guns slung across their chests. He stepped closer, his voice calm but sharp as a scalpel. "Now you know the truth. The question is, Doctor, what are you going to do with it?" Dr. Elena Carter's throat tightened as the tall man advanced, his guards closing in like predators circling prey. The files trembled in her hands. "You've seen what you weren't meant to," he said smoothly, like a professor lecturing a student. "That makes you a liability, but it also makes you useful. You're smart, respected. Imagine what we could achieve if you worked with us instead of against us." His words slithered into her mind, tempting her with survival. But all she could see were the photographs in the file. Broken bodies, vacant stares, children robbed of their futures. Her voice shook, but her resolve did not. "You call this achievement? You're turning human beings into monsters." The man's smile didn't waver. "Progress is never pretty." He nodded to the guards. "Bring her." They stepped forward. Elena's instinct screamed. She clutched the file tight, then hurled it across the room. Papers scattered like snow in a storm. As the guards turned instinctively, she bolted. The chase thundered through the basement. Her shoes pounded against the concrete as she darted between shelves, lungs burning. Behind her, shouts echoed, "Stop her!" She burst into the stairwell, slamming the door behind her. Her badge beeped against the scanner, denied. Panic surged. She shoved with all her weight, but the lock held. Footsteps pounded closer. Then, salvation. A maintenance ladder in the corner. She scrambled up, nails scraping metal, hauling herself into the crawl space above. Dust choked her lungs as she pulled the hatch closed just as the door burst open below. From the darkness of the crawl space, she listened. "She can't get far," one guard growled. "Let her run," the tall man replied, his voice echoing coldly. "She has nowhere to go. The hospital is sealed tighter than a prison. She'll come to us eventually." Their footsteps faded. Elena stayed frozen, heart hammering. She wanted to collapse, to cry, but she couldn't. Not now. She had the truth, but without proof it meant nothing. She crawled through the suffocating tunnel until she found another hatch that opened into the nurse's locker room. Empty. She staggered to her locker, yanked out her phone, and snapped pictures of the stolen documents stuffed in her coat pocket. Patient IDs, experiment notes, Project Nightfall. Her hands shook as she typed a message to Marissa. "Meet me at the north exit. Midnight. Don't tell anyone." But as she hit send, a realization cut through her panic. If they're watching everything, they already know. The phone buzzed almost instantly. Not Marissa. An unknown number. A single message. "Run." Her blood turned to ice. It was past midnight. The corridors were too still. Cameras blinked overhead, red eyes tracking her every step. She slipped through the shadows, clutching the stolen files, moving toward the north exit. Every footstep echoed like a gunshot in her ears. And then she saw her, Marissa, standing at the end of the corridor, eyes wide, hands twisting nervously. Relief flooded Elena's chest, until she noticed the two men in suits stepping out of the shadows behind her. Marissa's lips moved silently. "I'm sorry." Elena's world tilted. The guards raised their weapons. And suddenly, the hospital felt less like a sanctuary of healing, and more like a trap she might never escape. The guards' rifles glinted under the fluorescent light. Elena froze, her pulse thundering in her ears. Marissa's tear-streaked face was the last confirmation she needed. Her friend had been forced to betray her, but Elena wasn't ready to surrender. Not yet. She clutched the folder tight against her chest. "If you kill me, the truth dies with me," she said, her voice steady though her knees shook. "Is that what you want? Silence forever?" The tall man stepped out from the shadows, his smile as polished as ever. "On the contrary, doctor, the truth is only dangerous if people believe it. And I assure you, no one will." The guards advanced. Desperation surged. Elena's hand darted into her pocket, the phone still recording, its flashlight blinking faintly. She pressed send on the pre-written draft she had typed earlier, blasting the photos and files to every journalist, watchdog, and activist she could find. Her phone chimed. Message sent. The tall man's expression faltered. "Too late," Elena whispered. The corridor erupted in chaos. One guard lunged, but Elena hurled herself sideways, crashing through a supply cart. Papers and vials shattered across the floor. Shouts echoed. Boots pounded. She ran. Every corner felt like a dead end, but adrenaline carried her. Sirens wailed, the hospital was in lockdown. But even through the noise, she knew. The files were out. The world would know. By dawn, news networks were ablaze. Project Nightfall. Secret human experiments exposed. Patients' names. Faces. Evidence. No amount of spin could bury it. Investigations tore through St. Dismas Medical Center like wildfire. Executives resigned. Government officials scrambled to deny involvement. Families demanded answers. Elena Carter disappeared from public view, slipping underground to avoid retaliation. But her voice lived on in every interview, every headline, every protest chant. Her final words, captured in a leaked video, echoed across the globe. They wanted to bury the truth. Instead, it's the only thing that will outlive them. If the story shook you, don't let it fade into silence. Share it, comment your thoughts below, and hit subscribe so you never miss another untold story. The fight for justice begins with awareness, and together we can make sure the truth is never buried again.